Hello, one person watching. Thank you for coming so quickly. I suppose this is a sort of progress report, such as it is. I think I have, in my mind anyway, made quite a lot of progress. I mean, in a sense that you think you are getting somewhere because you have new ideas, new arguments. Which nobody has been able to debunk. Now, even though I was very badly treated yesterday at Randos United, I suppose it was a result that I managed to stay throughout the stream and get to know the guests and analyze their behavior. I used to think that the wait nats were terrible, but actually I think they made more sense. Even their, desire to kick everyone out and blame the Jews and hate the Muslims, it sort of made sense, even if it's, at a very primitive level. But the middle classes, wow. Because of all their education, they feel they are above things such as anti-Semitism. Most of them feel, obliged to condemn it. But the way I was treated, just by talking normally, I mean, the way they treated me, now that I think of it, is as if I was about to blow myself up or something, and they were in the same room. And, well, I'm not saying anything that they haven't already heard before, but it was the exaggerated, the exaggerated demonizing of me and my ideas. It's when you watch them that you think there are genuine class differences. I mean, forget racial differences. It's just amongst white people, the way they behave when they think they are a different class to each other and how mean they are to each other. Well, they might as well be a different race, right? Or a different sex. I mean, assuming they know which sex they are. So something very, very scary is happening to white people. I'm actually concerned about them, and I really do want to help. And these days, they're just not making much sense. Do you know, I think Vincent makes more sense than other white people who think themselves better than him. I think Vincent gets it. He's not quite ready, but he sees the logic of it. I like to think so. It's happened to me too, when somebody says you've got to do something and you can't really think of any reason not to do it, and but you hate the idea and you want to pretend you haven't heard it. Well, it's happened to the best of us, including me. You'll tell something about yourself, some horrible, dismaying, humiliating thing, and you have to deal with it, and it's not a dream. You really have to deal with it. As I was saying, something very bad is happening to white people. I am very concerned about them. They're not making much sense. I guess they are paralyzed with terror, fear, hatred, confusion, and the desire to deny the truth and logic of what I say. And that explains their exaggerated horror at, I suppose, their keeping me at arm's length, shall we say. But nothing I have said is illogical or provably false. Indeed, some of the comments yesterday on Randos United support this. They complain about my methods. And I think they're quite effective. I've framed a narrative that is beginning to take shape. And I know this because other people are using my ideas. And you're going to say, well, they might have got these generic ideas all by themselves. And you would be right. I suppose they are generic ideas. I can't take credit for all of them. But it's helpful that people are echoing my ideas, such as Auron MacIntyre saying conservatism is kaput, but not quite saying Christianity is kaput because he's Christian. What else? He also says today, he says that there is an aristocracy of victimhood, which is another way of saying that there is an inverted pyramid of social hierarchy with the worst people right at the top, i.e. Trans people right at the top, and their victims right at the bottom. Christian victims of Elizabeth Hale are right at the bottom. No media sympathy for these murdered school staff or children. So this is the dementia and insanity of Western society at the moment. And I'm saying it's because they have no moral system. And what I mean by moral system is a system of rules with a scripture attached to it, i.e. an official handbook that constitutes the moral system that is required for people to know that laws being passed by their legislature is constitutional or unconstitutional. I know the Americans will say, but we've got a constitution. And yes, it's got 27 amendments giving Americans various rights, which I in practice ignored, because what happens when you have people in charge who don't care? I was going to say don't care about the rules, but actually I mean who don't care about being fair. I mean, obviously the rules are can be used for good or ill. They can be used fairly, or it can be an abusive process. And we see this being done to Donald Trump. And if they succeed, then, well, I'm afraid the rest of the West will feel that we will get no justice anywhere anymore. And this will have the effect of increasing civil disorder, because if you don't think you're going to get justice, you're not going to spend money on lawyers' fees in order to just receive injustice. So the likelihood of people taking the law into their own hands is higher. So this is my prediction of the consequence of weaponized lawfare. Well, is that a tautology? Lawfare is the weaponization of the legal process. Actually, it just means abuse of process and vexatious litigation. And really the only way to end all this is to have trustworthy people in charge of all the important departments of state, in particular the court and legal system. We have to feel that they're not corrupt, and we have a good chance of receiving justice. Not that anybody seems to be doing anything about it. So there were 3 videos I had in mind. 2 of them are by Auron MacIntyre. One is about the failure of conservatism. The other is about the inverted pyramid of the matriarchy, putting the worst people in charge over those who are formerly the ones in control. The third one is by Will Nolan, who was interviewing a woman, a very pretty lady called Mega, who I thought I'd come across her on Luke Ford some years ago, and she was saying quite right-wing and white nationalist things, I suppose you'd say, but really only family values. But I noticed that her Substack is obviously calibrated to attract white men. What was interesting about her was that she talked about idolatry. And if I'm right, that she's that Hindu young woman that was on Luke Ford's channel maybe about a year or 2 ago, then Conops will remember her. Then it does sound like my ideas are sparking a march of similar ideas that will frame the narrative of, hopefully, the victory of good over evil. And I'm saying that it can be accomplished by legal and peaceful means. But it means that you people will have to listen to me and do what I say. I'm not going to ask you to do anything crazy. You just have to be, a member of my keyboard army. Hello, Aussie's army, call for an uprising. Do I know you? you're new. That's also nice. Obviously, the peaceful and legal way is to do it by social media. The way you can do it is really to show that you are a group and you do what you are supposed to do. You say what you're supposed to say. And it's a shame. It's a shame if this opportunity is bypassed. Now, here's this for an idea. Let me be the general of this keyboard army designed to save the world through legal and peaceful means, because we're just posting on social media, aren't we? You do a few things, I tell you, it's nothing, it's not a big deal. You're just sort of, trying things out. You're just testing the water. So on the question of idolatry, I don't think anybody else has been talking about it apart from that mega woman. But she only mentioned it in passing. I've gone into great detail about why it is harmful. I'm now on hidden idolatry. I'm not talking about bowing before idols. I think I have explicated its harm better than, well, any rabbi, really. Any rabbi in Jewish history, as far as I know. So I should be given credit. I probably won't. I know people will steal my ideas without crediting them, but that's all right. That's all right. You can have my ideas for free. They are, in a way, generic, obvious, when you have the ability to deduce them. And I know most Western men have, well, bits of their brain falling out, so they don't know what's what. They certainly don't seem to know whether they're men or women. So what are we to make of Elizabeth Hale? 8 days later, and they still won't tell us what a manifesto said. I read today that she had a problem. Oh yes, it was in the Telegraph, wasn't it? She had a problem with a pastor who was attached to the Covenant School, and she knew his daughter, who she killed. At the very least, even if you didn't hate Christians, you would have to acknowledge that the Covenant School did not manage to instill in Elizabeth Hale a Christian respect for life, assuming that Christians respect life. We don't know, do we? After all, Christians practice a kind of virtual cannibalism, a kind of virtual human sacrifice. It's the official narrative of Christianity. Christians are supposed to believe that Jesus died for their sins. So if you tell these Christians that Jesus didn't die, as some Muslims do, because the Muslim narrative is that Jesus didn't die on the cross. It only appeared that he had done so. Christians would get upset with these Muslims because really they want Jesus to die, so to save them from their sins. Or perhaps they don't know what they think. The point is that Christians have difficulty accepting that what they're supposed to believe in is absurdity, idolatry, and blasphemy, and it'll take them a little bit of time to digest the enormity of being lied to. Not just, oh, I've been lied to all my life. It's not just you, it's your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors. I think I worked out that it was about probably 102 generations of Europeans who are supposedly Christian, lied to, forced into idolatry. And it'll be very traumatic, and they probably don't want to acknowledge it. But they should really, because there is a cure. There is a cure before the disease. So these days I can very easily give a lecture about idolatry better than any rabbi. Will still be afraid of offending Christians, and if they get over their fear of offending Christians, I think I can take credit for it. And if Muslims get over their fear of obeying chapter 18 verse 4 of the Quran, commanding them to admonish those who claim that God has begotten a son, I can take credit for that. And if more dissident right YouTubers start talking about how conservatism has failed, I can take credit for that too. If they also conclude that the failure of conservatism is caused by the failure of Christianity. I see Joe is in the chat, helpfully trying to suggest that I'm inciting violence. Of course I'm not. I'm only talking about a keyboard army, and what I'd like you to do with your keyboard army, well, as a member of my keyboard army, is to, and this really only applies to Jews and Muslims. So for Jews, they should rank the 4 Gentile religions according to their conformity with the Noahide laws, and post on, whatever social media platform they're on, words to the effect of, actually, it's not even Jews, it should be rabbis, Orthodox rabbis, rank the 4 Gentile religions according to their conformity with the Noahide laws, producing the following ranking. Number 1, Islam. Number 2, Buddhism. Number 3, Hinduism. Number 4, Christianity. And just leave it. Maybe somebody will ask a question, and then you can start a dialogue, and that's all Orthodox rabbis need to do. And for Muslims, on Twitter, they can tag the Pope and the Archbishop of Canterbury and ask them how and why Christianity is not idolatry and blasphemy, and how Jesus is God. That's all they have to do. No bombs, no violence. And that's all they have to do, just Jews and Muslims. Dealing with the Pope and Archbishop of Canterbury. That's all they have to do. Will they even do it, though? So I think I've said all I want to say in half an hour. I'm very pleased that our ideas are being echoed, even without attribution. Oh yes, there's another video I wanted to talk about, which is by, what was it? By Cale Zeldin. He was talking to Rod Dreher. And I'll find it for you. I've posted a few comments, so you've got something to be getting on with if you're interested. It's called The Underneath. Not particularly intelligent comments. Actually, my comments have been completely ignored. But they're still there. Oh, right. Yes, I have to post it for you, haven't I? Here we are. So what's going on? Who are you guys watching? What's fun? It's just called The Underneath. It hasn't even got a proper title. I'll highlight that for you. Aussie's army calling for an uprising. Well, you're a different country. Of course, I don't support. Oh, right. Of course. How can I forget? Australians. This is what you should be doing. You should be calling for a referendum, of course. You should be asking yourselves whether you want to be monarchists or Republicans, and whether you want to be Christian or you want to be something else. Because if you're on about white identity, if you think white identity is something to be resolved, then the most important issues for white people all over the world, if they're not American, would be, do we want to be monarchists or do we want to be Republicans? So this pertains to the British and to its former dominions of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Australia is very important to America, very important strategically for its unique geopolitical position. And Australians should know that they and their territory and their resources have been more or less put at the disposal of the Americans, because Britain is the biggest US vassal state of all. But I know that the current Australian Prime Minister has had his arm twisted and therefore agreed that there will be no referendum in his first term of office, assuming he serves the full term. But really, the most important thing for Australians to decide is whether they want to be connected to the British monarch. The Director General has the power to dismiss any elected Australian Prime Minister, answering to only the British monarch. So if you fancy having that kind of Prime Minister, dismissible at the pleasure of your Governor General, then I guess you don't want an independent foreign policy, and you don't deserve one. And I guess it means you don't really want to think that much about your white identity, because it's too painful, or it's too upsetting, and you're not going to do it. And well, you are really facilitating the most evil empire in the world, and the world is making moves to dump the dollar and to cordon off the craziness of Uncle Sam. France, in fact, today had their president go and visit China. I saw a few pictures of it. He was given the red carpet treatment. What a pity it wasn't a British Prime Minister. Macron is, nobody's going to say he's ugly. He knows how to behave. He can be charming. He's, a good-looking sort of fellow. And he, at least, has ambitions for his country, unlike the likes of Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss and those contemptible losers that will not be here for very long. So what's the plan for Britain? I guess Britain will duly have another election next year, and they will duly elect Keir Starmer because they're sick of the Tories. And, if you still want to be Liberal Democrats, then go right ahead, but I reject it. And talking about liberal democracy, it has outlived its usefulness. I think the Jews in Israel are getting ready to kick it out. I predict that there will be terrorism in Israel, and not committed just by the Arabs. I don't mind. I want everybody to listen in. The more the better. The more senior the better. I raise issues that are of global concern. So we'll see what the Australians do, if they know what's good for them.